start to think, oh, the Tahoe closest starts to end up on the brink. I tried so hard, but all these scars, they cut so deep I bleed. I fell so fast from heaven, it's like someone clipped my wings. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I wanna say goodbye. I forgive the pain you gave to me so long ago. Sleepless nights I laid awake just begging to let go. I almost got to suicidal thoughts, but you stepped in. An angel sent from heaven showed me how to live again. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye. My love, I'm gone, I need to be strong. The darkness that tried to swallow me. Some days I fall, but I hear your call. I pray I don't hit the ground. Gravity. Gravity.
Said that you moved on. Where did I go wrong? I tried to make you stay, but I guess my love wasn't enough. Was it me or was it you, love? 'Cause I'm dying to know. Why do you wanna end? Was it real or just pretend? Tell me, why do you wanna end? Was he really just a friend? No sign of you at all. Just pictures on these walls, reminding me of how you threw away all that we've gone through. Was it all just a game to you? 'Cause I'm dying to know. Why do you wanna end? Was it real or just pretend? Tell me, why do you wanna end? Was he really just a friend?
Well, everybody, yeah, everybody, yeah. Take it up to the top, may the party never stop. Make it loud, make it clear, let them know that we're here.
Welcome to We're All Adults Here. Tonight, Meg is going to be our lovely host. So I am going to hand over to Meg.
Everyone, welcome to WA this week. We have myself, Meg, and we have Nessa again. And then our guest this week is Anne, or AKA De Novo Review. Anne, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself for those of our audience that don't know you already?
Sure. I'm Anne. Like she said, I am a streamer here on Twitch. I work in a state legislature, so I work in politics. But for the last 10 years, I've been doing domestic violence and sexual assault work. So hopefully, some of that will help me go through today's conversation.
So today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. Typically, we go through about 2 to 3 topics in the beginning, like current events, things that have been hot topics throughout the week. But this week, if you have been on the internet, you've been on Twitter, you've been on Twitch, it's been one main story, and that is the issue that is coming up with sexual harassment, sexual assault with Twitch streamers. There were a lot of female streamers that came forward with some accusations this week. And we just wanted to take the full time this time to talk about it, to give us a chance to kind of work through all that. We did also want to provide everyone with some resources. We know this is a sensitive topic. We usually are a little bit more lighthearted, so this is something different for us. But Anne and Nessa had put together some resources. We'll share the link of the Google Doc if you need any further assistance or someone to talk to. And of course, we are all going to be in the Discord afterwards if anyone would like to talk to any of us as well. But let's start with some of the big stories in this realm that happened this week. The first one being the story of the female streamer Vio coming forward about one of the people that worked for Twitch and a relationship she had ongoing with him. So Anne, had you had a chance to read about that a little bit?
A little bit. But for in case anyone who didn't know, we may want to fill them in.
So what happened was she had met his name was Hassan, who worked for Twitch, and she initially just met him in a Discord chat room. She was a streamer at the time, but was not a partner or anything like that. She was a newer streamer, and became friends with him. And he quickly really made a major effort to be her friend and made a couple of promises, offered to help her become a partner. And then she met with him face to face. And she had drawn a strong boundary. So before they met, she had said, I'm just interested in being friends. I'm not interested in pursuing a relationship with you. So she was very clear. And then when they met in person, he was very touchy-feely with her. He would constantly touch her and she would tell him to please stop. And they had met a few more times. They were at TwitchCon together, and he had started to put his hands down her pants. It had gone even further. And they sort of started engaging in a relationship, but it was a very one-sided relationship. So she expressed that she had felt trapped because he, held a position of power in Twitch. She was trying to her goal was to become a Twitch partner. He had made her, offered different ways to help her, sharing her platform, sharing it with his Twitter audience, sharing it with the people at Twitch that he knew. And he actually ended up offering her a partnership, one of the Twitch partnerships, and she turned it down because she felt like maybe she didn't earn it, and she felt like it was going to affect their relationship. So she ended up, it went on for months and months. Like this went on for like a year, I believe, their relationship, where he would constantly try to break it off, and he would constantly kind of bring it back to her career with Twitch, and things like that. So it was a very sort of manipulative, one-sided relationship that she didn't feel like she had like equal autonomy in. So Anne, when you first read this story, was it something that surprised you?
Not really. And that's sad. I think it's classic predatory behavior. And it reminded me a lot of the Harvey Weinstein type stories. I know it's a different industry, but we see this happen over and over again in industry where a man says, oh, look, there's this woman and she's interested in like having a successful career. They find a way to latch onto her. And, you know, this isn't the first time we've seen something like this.
No.
What about you, Nessa?
No, absolutely. And I think the big piece here is this was a kind of an over time. She kept outlining a boundary and he kept throwing stuff up against it. And every time it eroded that wall a little bit more. So suddenly saying no to dinner became, okay, we'll have dinner. Saying no to the next step eventually became allowing him to touch her. Saying no to the next step eventually became kissing. And, you know, it was like every time he pushed and something else, you know, she would go that little bit more in the hope that that might be enough then to just satisfy and stop him. And of course it never was. And, you know, I mean, I went through something last year fairly similar, and before I kind of I had a choice at that point, because when I realized that I had gone over a personal boundary and this person had manipulated me into that position, I basically blocked that person. This was an online interaction and I was able to remove myself from that situation. The difference here was that he was so integrally integrated into her chosen career and the things that she wanted to, you know, the goals that she wanted to achieve. And so really hard when you have to work with that person to you know, she didn't have that choice to remove herself from that situation. And that's the hardest thing, when maybe it's someone in your workplace or it's someone you have to work with, like a contractor or something, which is obviously kind of what this kind of was, but where you just have to, and have to keep holding your boundaries is really hard in that kind of situation, especially if you feel that not, you know, by holding your boundaries you will suffer some kind of detriment, if that person so wishes. And
Right. And I think it's difficult as well when you make a boundary and then you cave in on it, and then you start to feel that guilt, like yourself, like you're not doing enough, even though you tried your best to draw the boundary. And it ends up being kind of like this toxic cycle of like drawing the boundary, caving in, trying to draw the boundary again, and caving into the person. And so that's why I think these stories, it's so difficult for people to come forward, because it is easy, you know, with something that's like a straightforward rape or something, you know, like you were, you know, that's, you can say, well, hopefully you can say like, yes, this is what exactly happened. But when it's to the level of like manipulation, and the kind of like the nuanced issues, it's a lot more difficult to come forward, you know. And with her, she was in a relationship with him to some degree. Like, I don't think she specifically said if like that was her boyfriend, but it was some type of like friendship relationship, that the line kind of went back and forth on. So
it feels, it's like the same visual in my head of, is it the frog in the boiling water or whatever, where you know that the heat's going up but you don't realize how bad it is until it's way too late. It feels like that's the visual that comes to mind when I think of these type of situations.
Yeah, I mean, boundaries is so important. I mean, the piece today is like, put your boundaries up, but that you have to then understand or hope that the other person respects those boundaries. And that's the big piece. Right. I mean, today we've, you know, I mean, I'll bring, well, this might be a good point to bring up what we were discussing earlier about the video that came out from Keemstar. I don't know if anyone else saw that today. So Keemstar commenting on a particular account where male and female gamer live together. And one night, female's gone to bed, male gamer gets drunk, he gets into bed with her and starts fondling and groping and all the rest of it, and she freezes. She doesn't know what to do. And my sort of pieces, and then Keemstar's made this wonderful video about how she should have said no, she should have drawn the boundary, and how important and responsible it is that women need to draw those boundaries. And I'm in two minds about this, because I absolutely believe that we need to get better, generally speaking, within society at outlining what we are and we aren't comfortable with, because it's such a subjective thing that when I'm flirting with somebody, what I might feel is fine in terms of touchy-feely and the rest of it, somebody else might not be comfortable with that and they might find it very intrusive. So at that point, you know, boundaries are really important to say, actually, that's not okay, and that is okay. But this quite clearly was so over any kind of boundary that to say that she should have said something is like, well, no, he just shouldn't have gone into her room at night after she'd gone to sleep and got into bed with her. I mean, what?
Well, that, and like, how many times do we say, if you don't get a yes, it's a no? And people, like, you know, people that are saying these kind of things, just like Keemster's doing, they don't understand that. They're like, well, it's not a no, so it's a yes. Like, come on, dude. You know that that's not the case. You're an adult. Think about this. And also, like, just people don't understand. And we were talking about this in the pre-show. It's a natural response for someone to freeze. You have fight, flight, and you have freeze.
Yeah.
It's a very natural response for someone to not be able to respond in this situation. So if it's not a yes, it's a no.
I think we have to think about also the ages of these women. So like I'm 36 and I'm definitely much better now at drawing boundaries than say I was when I was like 19. You know,
Absolutely.
I think 19, you're still finding your voice, you know, you're still, especially if you're like a 19, 20, 21-year-old woman and it's like a 35-year-old man who works at Twitch that controls your
Career.
know, right. So I think like even now, like I'm an IT project manager. I work in a male dominated industry. So I constantly, most of the time, the men I work with are great. But I have had like a few incidents where with mostly consultants come in from other organizations to work with me. And it's a tough spot that I'm in because I have more of a problem with the consultants crossing a line with me and there's no one really to report a consultant to. So, you know, I have to be really direct about, you know, what I will tolerate from them and basically like tell HR, like, I'm not going to work with this person. Like, you know, they've crossed a boundary with me. They've touched me. They've said inappropriate things. And, you know, I can say as somebody who works for like a pretty large organization, like I'm not heard very well, you know? And I think that like when you're not heard very well, you're taught kind of like to shut up and you start questioning yourself. Like I had an incident just a few months ago with a consultant sexually harassing me and I had a witness. My boss was in the room. Very openly sexually harassed me. He was touching me. He was making inappropriate comments. He was looking me up and down. To the point that she ended the meeting because she was so uncomfortable with the way that he was treating me.
Good.
And she went to go talk to HR and the HR person literally said, well, what's Megan wearing today? I heard the HR person say that. And like, to me, I'm like, you know, nobody here has my back. Like I was very blatantly sexually harassed in front of a supervisor. You know, I had the witness, you know, but no, even HR to me didn't have my back, that they were like, well, you know, and nothing happened to the guy. He doesn't have to, I don't have to work with him anymore. They reassigned him, but nothing happened.
Yeah.
So
I work in HR, and that's actually just reminded me, Meg, of something that happened at my work one time, where I actually ended up having to have a conversation with this poor girl. We had reports that she was walking around and that some of our IT guys were perhaps making inappropriate comments, for example, on her attire. She was a tall girl. She happened to be wearing probably a skirt that was, because she was tall, it was quite totally appropriate for her figure, but because she was that bit taller, like when she walked past some of the guys sitting down, certain bits were like at eye height and things, right? And it was just like they were like making some nasty sort of rude comments and things. The conversation, I mean, we obviously did have a very stern chat with those guys about the inappropriateness, but I also did have to have this chat with this poor girl to say, and this is where it's awful, because it's kind of like, you probably can't wear that again, because this is, and that's not the kind of chat one should have had to have. There was nothing really wrong. There was nothing really different. But because of the kind of knock on, it was kind of like, you should probably be aware. And she was absolutely devastated. You know, she was like, oh my God, it's never happened. You know, those kinds of conversations where you feel almost like this is not how it should be. I shouldn't have had to have that conversation with her. Just because she was wearing something that, you know, similar person on a shorter person, probably similar skirts, similar length on a shorter person wouldn't be an issue because it would have been below a certain eye line and things. But because it was right in their sort of in their eye lines, for some reason it was catching the attention, and these comments were coming out of it. And I just thought,
but also they should have been able to control their mouths.
And we absolutely did have that conversation, say, under no circumstances is that appropriate kind of, language and things to use. But again, making her aware that because of her height and because of everything else, that, when she's walking past people, it just happens to be then that she's got quite a bit of thigh showing, and that happens,
the funny thing is
hard.
that day, like that I was wearing, and I ended up walking in there and saying, like, this is what I'm wearing, because I literally had like an extra large cable knit sweater on that like probably was almost to my knees, and like jeggings and knee-high boots. Like, I was so covered. I could not have been more covered.
Yeah.
Nothing was tight. Like, I dressed pretty modestly to work anyway. So, but it just really got me that like it was two women talking about me, and the first thing was, well, what was she wearing? Like, well, I wasn't wearing a sign that said "rub my thigh."
Yeah.
That. So,
to sort of piggyback, since we all have stories, to sort of piggyback off of that, I think something that has bothered me a lot, and something that absolutely devastated me in my last job, was the fact that you would think that women would be standing up for other women in these situations, and like you said, that's not always the case. I had, in my last job, I was a domestic violence sexual assault attorney, and I was having a trial in one of my cases, and I was in the mountains of North Carolina, so like, first of all, you didn't see many women. You definitely didn't see many women under 60 doing law out there. So I had one case with this male attorney who I'd worked with on several cases before. I'd negotiated with him with a lot of cases and knew I was going to see him again. He has horrible handwriting, so I like wrote up a motion for him. I asked the judge if I could approach, and I go up there. I start walking back. This attorney, on the record, the case is being recorded. He's wearing a wedding ring. He says, "Judge, don't you think that we would make a great couple?" And the female judge said nothing to this man. Nothing. And so then I was upset because my supervisor, who was a male attorney, he had finished his cases, so he went back to the office to go have some coffee. So I finished my work. I went into the office and I was just like, this dude just asked me out on the record during a trial. And everybody laughed. And then I was like, no, I'm really messed up about this. This wasn't okay. And they were like, oh, we need to sit down and talk to someone. And I was like, thank you. But like the fact that happened, and I had expected this female judge would stand up for me, and she said nothing. She was just like, yeah, no, haha, you're funny. I was just blown away. So I can imagine what you were feeling when it was two women talking about.
And that's what happened to me. My boss went and then told a coworker about it. She was like, "You're not going to believe what just happened to Meg. Like, it was crazy. I couldn't believe he did that, blah, blah, blah." And she's like laughing about it. Like, it's this like funny story, like, to tell about what happened to me.
Yeah.
And the other guy was like, nothing is funny about this. Like, only like one person in my office like stood up for me and was like, "Are you okay?" Like, he was the first person after my boss, the HR lady, some other guy she was telling the story to, finally was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I guess." Like, I was just so like, the blatant way that the man acted was just, it made me feel really unsafe, I will say. That like there were people there and that's how he acted. What if I had been alone with him in that meeting? What would have happened? Like, and if you think about like with the Twitch thing, like, I'm lucky enough, like, I work in a physical building and there's like a physical HR is by me. Like, I know where I can go if I need something, and hopefully they would help. Like, when everything is kind of this virtual world and you're inexperienced, you've probably not had a lot of jobs before, like corporate jobs, who do you go to that you can trust? And there were a lot of stories that was the thing about it. I don't remember who exactly all the streamers were, but they were saying they filed a complaint. Oh, it was the one, Nessa. It was that one we were talking about in the green room where she had filed so it was with like maybe the VP. She had filed a complaint with the CEO, and then he forwarded the email to the person that she made the complaint about.
Yeah. And then literally that person then tried to contact her, quoting like her words verbatim. And she, of course, was like, "I don't want to interact with you." And then he's like, "Well, why are you not talking to me? I want to try and resolve this." And then, of course, she looks like the bad person or she feels that they're trying to make her the bad person because she won't engage. And she's like, "I shouldn't have to engage. This person's already made me uncomfortable enough. I do not want anything more to do with them. What is unclear about that?
Well, and also the sad thing about Twitch and these interactions is like how many of these conversations are happening on like Snapchat and Signal, where you can't have receipts, you can't have the screenshots and the receipts of the messages. So that's going to be another hurdle for these women to be believed, is people are going to say, well, but it was on Snapchat, so you could have made it up, or it was on Signal and the messages are gone.
I think too, like I shared on Twitter after that happened, I came home and I like had a really brief, like, oh, I was sexually harassed at work today. Like, the first thing that the HR person said was, what was she wearing? Like, I just like a little tweet like that. And like, there were at least 3 men that were like, well, what do you consider sexual harassment? Everyone calls everything sexual harassment these days.
No, they don't.
Like, right, like, well, I don't know. I'm 36. This is the first time I'm calling it sexual harassment. So like, I'm pretty sure I'm not like out here just, falsely labeling these men out here.
I mean, we've one of the articles that we linked to was from The Guardian here in the UK, which is kind of like, I think exactly that. There is a big kind of piece around what men may or may not consider sexual harassment and what women obviously consider sexual harassment, because when they actually kind of did a kind of questionnaire of perceptions, it was kind of like in the US, the actual prevalence of sexual harassment amongst women is about 80% have experienced some kind of sexual harassment. The people that they polled, they only thought maybe about 50%. Here in the UK, what does it say? They got about 70%. They were guessing again just under 50%. So that's a pretty big difference. 20-30% underestimation of the prevalence of sexual harassment experienced by women, and that kind of goes to a naivety, I think, to some extent, about what really constitutes sexual harassment. Oh, Anne, you seem to have cut out. We cannot hear you. Dom, we've lost Anne. Yeah. Dom? Is it a me thing?
Hello, tech support here. How can I
Tech
help?
support, is it a me thing?
Oh, wait,
Or is it an Anne thing?
Meg, could you say something, Meg?
Can you say something, Meg? Meg, can you say something? I don't think she can hear me either.
Okay, sorry, 1 second, darlings. Test.
Hello?
Hello,
Nope.
there you go. Okay, looks like
What happened?
Is it back again?
it is.
Oh, weird.
I'm sorry.
Meg, can you hear us as well?
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Oh,
hear you.
weird. Okay.
That was weird.
Right.
Thanks. Okay, so Anne, I don't think anyone heard anything you
Apologies
said.
for that.
so-
No, it's okay. You're gonna have
Just
to
see
repeat
how
all
mad I
that.
got in my face.
We felt it, but we didn't hear it.
Well, so what I was saying is, I think part of it is naivete. And I think that the other part of it is we don't think about how long this has been happening for so many women. The classic cases you think about when you think sexual harassment are workplace and, college and things like that. Who pressed the button? But you don't think about cases like I told y'all about last week. 5-year-old me going to kindergarten on the school bus, getting kissed by a second grader, trying to push him off of me. We don't think about those cases as like, yeah, that was sexual harassment, happened when I was 5 years old.
I think
So we don't think about the range and the time that a lot of women have had, and a lot of women have had multiple instances of harassment. So
Yeah.
I think that also increases the number, is we don't think about harassment just after the age of 18.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
gotta think
someone I
about
think
it
mentioned
whole
sort of
life.
like earlier, I think toddlers, like right from the off, the importance of like that girls for some reason are taught that boundaries aren't really something, that they should have right from the early off. And I know when we talked about it, I mean, how many children are forced to hug relatives when they don't want to and things. Yeah, I mean, I think I think people are becoming more aware of that. I mean, the conversations that I have with my now 5-year-old as of yesterday around consent are, you know, and he is a boy, and I know that he has to understand that. Like, even at the age that he is, you know, if we get into a tickle fight, he says stop. We absolutely respect that. You know, it's like, okay, you know, you've said stop. That's it. You know, we give him the option. It's never you've got to give X a kiss or a hug. It's like, would you like to? And hope that manners win out in some of those circumstances. But, you know, and I think one of you was saying, or somebody was saying that with their little girl, that they very much, you know, they ask if whether it's okay to hug them and things like that. And like, even from that young age, instilling the idea of consent and boundaries, and that it's not okay just to do things without asking.
And it's just, you know, there's such a broad spectrum, right, of sexual harassment and assault. And, you know, we think about the classic cases that you see on TV and that you hear about, but we don't think of all of them. And, you know, just like you said, and I know Kelsey Ann's giving examples too, there's so many.
Yeah, no, I think Kelsey Ann's right. I mean, it's not manners to say yes when you want to say no. I absolutely agree, Kelsey Ann, but sometimes it's, I want to watch Paw Patrol rather than bother to get up off my sofa and actually say goodbye. And that's more what I mean, rather than obviously faking it, because that's bad. But I do think that there is a line where it's like, I'm making Tadgy, I know. Okay.
Well, I think like, so Twitch had put out a statement. I think it was Thursday that they tweeted.
No, they put it out Wednesday, didn't they?
Okay,
like,
Wednesday.
in response to the blackout.
They've started already blocking people, yeah, or banning people even.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so over the last few days, there's been like a number of people banned, but there's been like no explanation for most of those people. They're just kind of like banned, and they say nothing. And I understand, like, from a legal perspective, there might be certain things they cannot say, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel like just banning people and having that blanket statement Wednesday, which was a brief statement, by the way, and then just kind of blanket banning people without any explanation is kind of just a sweeping under the rug kind of thing. It's not really like Nessa, I don't know, like I wrote an article for Dom about like the safety council that Twitch had that was kind of like, what is that? Where's the safety council, guys? Like on this issue, you know, like what are they doing? Like, besides like just banning these people that have been allowed to get away with it for years, like what's actively going to be different in the future to prevent this? Because Twitch as a platform is, you know, you only have to be 13 to be on Twitch, and they have the whisper feature, which really allows like pedophiles to message children without really any repercussions. Granted, you can't exchange photos there. You can solicit for photos and then send them over to Snapchat or whatever, you know. So Twitch, the structure of Twitch in and of itself is at risk, you know, like it's a high risk situation for young people, not necessarily some under 18, some that are like, you know, still 18, 19, 20, that are new streamers and things like that. So like, what are they going to be doing to change that culture to make it different in the future? Because so far, I'm really not seeing anything. I mean, we're only a few days in, but this isn't the first time we've been down this road either. So.
And Twitch has been around for years. You would think that we would have protections at this point, especially since it's owned by a company so large as Amazon. You would think that.
And the Twitch CEO has been the CEO since before Twitch was Twitch. So he's been there a long enough time that he, you know, should have been addressing this.
But wasn't there was something circulated as well, which hearsay to some extent, I don't know if there was any actual evidence where somebody did bring this up and it kind of got laughed off by him as like, this is what our guys get up to. I heard
something like that.
You know, it was not taken seriously at that point. Like, this is what some of our partners get up to. So it's I do think that the quantity is now something they can't ignore, whereas I think previously there probably was a bit of blasé-ness around it. With anything like this, you know, I mean, this is where I talk about the intrinsic nature of power dynamics. Every single interaction we have in this world comes with an element of power exchange. And you can be at the top of that pile, or unfortunately at the bottom of it. And this is where it's kind of like the piece. I mean, there was the oh gosh, which one? There was somebody, one of the accounts, and they were saying that this streamer had coerced them into going on holiday with them, and during that time, despite them being on their period and them feeling uncomfortable with it, they basically felt that they had to had to have sex for the entire week, pretty much, with this individual. And this individual's obviously going, but this was never clear to me. And the fact was, she was like, well, I felt pressured because of this. You know, this was a fairly large streamer. She was a bit more of an unknown. And I think that there is a piece where those people at the top of the pile are ignorant is the wrong word, but sometimes blind to the idea that just their very status or whatever, without them even meaning to, creates this power dynamic where someone feels less able to say no. And this, obviously, that going back to that Hassan one, obviously, you know, that power dynamic meant that every time he threw this back up at her, she felt less able to say no. And it's absolutely fascinating to me to how power dynamics play out and how people can use them, or this kind of blind blaseness around it. Like, kind of people going, well, if it wasn't an outright no, and I didn't really kind of, it didn't seem uncomfortable. And then the other person is like, well, I'm acting normal as much as I can because this person could affect things. And you know, there are a lot of unsubtle body cues and things like that I think we have to get better at reading in those kinds of situations, and we have to get better at acknowledging those kinds of power dynamics, because otherwise this is going to keep happening, where one person is blindly going, oh well, she sort of seems all right with it, and the other person is like, I'm not sure I can really say no, I'm not sure I'm 100% comfortable with the situation, but I don't feel I've got any other choice.
And it's up to him to realize that there is a power dynamic there, right? Like, there's a reason that in other industries we have, so like in my industry, as an attorney, I can't sleep with a client because I have power over them. And in the state legislature, I can't be sleeping with a member because power, and I can't go sleep with a lobbyist who's registered in the state because power dynamic. Like, there's reasons that other industries have these things, and Twitch needs to realize, these partners, these higher up in Twitch need to realize, like, yeah, I do have some sort of power over these people, and I need to understand that I need to ask very clearly for consent and make sure that those boundaries are there, because I do have influence over these people. And I'll be interested to see. I know I follow the bot that tells you when they ban someone. I'll be interested to see how many of these bans stick. Because they have in the past perma-banned someone and then let them back. So I'm afraid that they're reacting out of like, oh, you know, we're trying to react to the blackout and all of the news. And when things calm down, I wonder if we'll see these streamers come back. That's what I'm afraid of.
One would hope that it's not, one would hope it's not knee-jerk and they actually have the evidence to support their bans. But I would assume, like with everything, that there's some kind of appeals process. But, you know, this is the point where some of those women that made some of those complaints might back out and, you know, they don't want to have their...
they're being attacked so much right now. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them...
Well, Dr. Disrespect tweeted yesterday saying that Twitch hadn't told him why he was banned yet.
Yeah. So we don't even know if
that's true. That's what he's claiming, that he hasn't been told.
But then there's like the last couple of minutes of his last stream or something, which is literally like, it's been good, you know, it's been a ride, oh fuck, was literally like the last few words of his. So I'm not sure. I mean, we really shouldn't bring that into this, because there really is no kind of nothing at all around anything that he may or may not have done, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories about completely unrelated things as well. So you know, but timing is an interesting one, but let's see how that plays out. But I think power dynamics, it may be transactional. If you're in that position of power and privilege, you may need to have those. You got to have those chats.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind
And
of
it goes for the same thing when the woman has the power dynamic over a man.
absolutely.
It goes both ways. If there is a power dynamic involved, you absolutely need to have that conversation. What's the word on the channel? Communication.
Yeah, I mean,
I
making
think,
yeah, this is your bingo. It's making sure
Yeah.
you know what you're getting, right? I mean, I go to the we had a chat on when we were green rooming about the women who go to bars and literally just ask men to buy the drinks all night because they can't be bothered to spend their own money. Well, not can't be bothered. They either don't have the money or they don't want to spend it. So instead they chat up guys and there's no, they have absolutely no intent of giving anything back for these drinks. And these guys buy them drinks all night. They may spend, I don't know how many, $100, whatever it could be. So chat's going crazy this evening. Just trying to read that as well. But yeah, they might spend $100 on somebody, and at the end of the night, it's like, well, yeah, doesn't mean anything. I'm going home now. Thanks for the free ride. And no wonder these people are pissed off. They're like, hang on a minute. If I'd known that, maybe I wouldn't have bought you all these drinks. Maybe they would have done. Maybe they would have been happy with the company and to have a good-looking girl or whatever on their arm. But I kind of feel if it was... I kind of feel that we need to have some of those discussions because it's absolutely fine to do that, but make it clear that that's what you're doing, because otherwise, personal controversial opinion, you're adding to the problem.
We do, I think I said this, I used this example with you guys earlier this week. Like when we go out for karaoke when, there's no coronavirus. That's what happens. You meet someone, we make friends, they buy around, and it's very clear that like, oh, we're all here to hang out and we're going to be friends. And like, maybe I'll get your number to find out if you're coming to karaoke next week. But it's all very clear that like, you're not using them for something. They're not using you for something else. You're just making friends. But I also think in our previous conversation, Meg made a really good point about, nobody should be equating drinks to sex.
Yeah.
Period, to begin with. And so it's a weird.
Yeah, I mean, my
It's
sort
a
of view
weird
is that
situation
there's
to
very
begin
few
with.
situations in this world where you get something for nothing. And if your expectation is to get something for nothing, then you should be clear about that. But yeah, no, absolutely agree that with anything, there shouldn't be any kind of expectation around any kind of sexual entitlement, I think is probably the piece here. And men are used to, anybody who's got money is used to maybe being able to buy the affections of, or company of people in that kind of way. There will always be those that seem to gravitate towards those kinds of people where, money gets thrown around fairly easily and things like that. And changing that is going to be a really hard, journey that society is going to have to go on. I mean, there is very much a piece around taking precautions for the world that we live in whilst trying to work towards the world that, the ideal and the world that we wish it was. And I kind of, my mum equipped me, and I think this is the reason that I probably haven't fallen into some of those things. A, I think I've been lucky, and B, I think I've recognized some of those situations and removed myself from them in the past before it went, it went bad. But that was very much, my mum brought me up post 60s, where sexual assault was pretty much part and parcel, it seems, of the day. You just said no, and generally they stopped.
That'd be nice.
We've come a long way even since then, thank goodness. I think it was a lot more prevalent even, 60 years ago, whatever it is, 50 years ago. So, but there is a piece where, my mum very much equipped me with, don't get drunk and be alone. Don't get drunk and dress half naked. Don't walk home at night without your phone out. We didn't have phones were not a thing back then, but it was very much like either the car keys or, I actually had an alarm, like a rape alarm or whatever you want to call them, at one point. This was like living in London, but even at university as well. It was kind of just simple things you equip yourself with, and it's hard to think that. Well, I wish we didn't live in that. We didn't have to live in that world, but I think personal responsibility says that you, at this point, we do have to take those kind of precautions, as awful as that is, whilst at the same time doing what I'm doing and what every parent should be doing, which is obviously teaching their children to ask and to not be rapists
And I
or
think that
sexual
there's some
assaults.
value. I think that there's some value in also realizing that you could have been brought up that way, because I know I was taught to always walk outside with your keys between your fingers, and don't get drunk in public and do all these things, and that still didn't stop my boyfriend from raping me.
Well, most of the time it's somebody you know, right? So it's what they...
Yeah. So I think that there is a piece of, we can be as protective as possible, and of course you should be, because unfortunately that's the world that we live in, but it's not necessarily always going to work, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I came across an article the other day, someone had recounted their physical and sexual assault. And the second comment down was some guy posting, and she knew, she said in there, she's like, it was post-lockdown, I was over eager, but we'd spent a load of hours together, and he seemed fine, and he was lovely, and all the rest of it. We'd had and she stupidly went back to, she went to a private place with him, and he physically and sexually assaulted her. And she was like, I'm coming forwards with this. And second thing down was literally some guy going, well, these are all the precautions that you should have taken. And she's like, and obviously the internet came down and went, hang on a minute, no, that's not okay to say in that circumstance. She knows what she did wrong. She didn't deserve to get physically assaulted for her misstep. And that's absolutely right. I mean, we all know, especially, the older you get and whatever, that there are precautions that you take, especially if you're meeting someone first time. You have a friend maybe as an emergency call, you have whatever that might, it depends on where you've met this person, but there's so many things they tell you to do, and you can just make one silly decision because they seem decent. And that's what happens. And you just think, could have been anybody. And it's,
I think it goes back to the first thing you said, you just got lucky, because I don't think for both Anne and I, it was someone we knew that raped us. It was somebody that we trusted in our lives. Yeah. So there wasn't, other than, walking around paranoid and not trusting any men ever and hating them, there wasn't really anything that I think either of us should do differently. So I think that it kind of goes back. There was one of the articles, the Guardian article you referenced earlier, that there were all these crazy statistics that said 30% of men don't even think that exposing themselves to a woman is sexual harassment. So I'm like,
unsolicited dick pics. We're back to unsolicited.
You don't think
dick
whipping
pics.
your penis out in front of somebody is any sort of a problem? Clearly there is something going on with the education level of men and what is acceptable, because women, all three of us can say from childhood, our mothers raised us to not walk down dark alleys, to carry our keys in our hand, to have your cell phone out. We have been,
brainwashed,
groomed and raised to do everything right. And so there's something missing with all of these people that think that, it's okay to whip your dick out, and nothing's wrong with it. It's not even that that's any sort of assault, but that it's not even sexual harassment. So I think that
do they think that it's not assault or harassment if you don't touch someone?
I think I think there is a part of that. I think if it's not got some kind of physicality to it, people don't consider it in the same, it's not valued in the same way, or it's not considered under the same sort of umbrella. And I also think anonymity. I mean, the internet is great. You don't know that person. You can people get the thrill, I think, of doing that kind of thing online. They may not go to their local park and try it, but some poor girl's DMs, they don't feel that they're but there's no repercussion. I mean, they might get banned if someone reports them. They come in under a different name and start again. I mean, it's a very different world we live in that respect.
BKG's point's really interesting. I've honestly never thought about if that could be, I'm not trying to get into the mind of an abuser, but that's a very interesting thought of if some of these men's lizard brains I like seeing tits, So I wonder if women like seeing this. And like, no, we don't. We don't. We
I
don't
mean, I
know.
would feel the same though. If some woman, random stranger, spanned me her boobs. To be honest, I'd be like, not sure what you were thinking.
Right, that too. Yeah, if I get just unsolicited lady pics, I don't want to see those either.
Yeah, so, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. If it comes from a stranger, just like, don't do it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Unsolicited boobs.
I
were
didn't
also
say I
sexual harassment,
want it.
yeah.
It's
No,
not
Let's not
exactly,
go down the rabbit
exactly.
hole of why men send
No,
dick pics. We'll be here forever.
I know. No, you're right. You're right. You're right. I just thought that was an interesting. I was like, I
Um,
have never thought of that.
Okay,
Oh,
so I think that we could talk about this all day because
yeah.
sadly we have so many stories and chat has so many stories. So
Yeah.
again, I want to encourage everyone. We'll post the links for the helplines, both US and UK. And
And some of the interesting articles
we're
we
gonna
found as well, which are quite, yeah, like that Guardian one that I've quoted, is quite. Some of them are quite worth a read if you're wanting to expand your sort of knowledge base.
right, and we'll be, at least I will be in the Discord later if anyone needs to talk or anything has any.
Yeah.
I know that some people might have a lot of feels after this chat. I want to try and transition to something a little bit more lighthearted. It's always tough to transition coming from this topic, but over to our Dear Wa section. So I'm going to go ahead and read our first article. The description is, gotten way too overweight and I'm now having second thoughts about marriage. I took a number of suggestions on what to bring up to him and how to have the conversation about my concerns. He did the usual thing, trying to brush it off. I persisted much more than I had before. Eventually, I got my wish. He finally told the truth. Not easily, mind. This was several hours long ordeal. He did not want to come clean about anything. He has a weight gain fetish, not me or someone else's gaining weight, which I already knew was a thing, but him gaining weight. He's been doing all this on purpose for years. He said the beginning was unintentional, just eating too much junk at college. Then he realized he liked it. He also realized he let himself balloon too much, I might bail. He didn't want to lose me, so he had enough self-control to keep it at a moderate level until I accepted his proposal last year. That was apparently the green light he needed to throw restraint to the wind and start pursuing this fetish full speed ahead. I never had a single inkling of suspicion the entire time. I guess I can't blame myself for that because dramatic weight gain is usually for the reasons I assumed: depression or stress or bad habits or just getting comfortable and not caring. Never hear of sexual motivations. I still feel like a complete and utter fool, like I got played hard. This was not what I thought I was marrying into. When, if ever, was he going to tell me? He claims he would have when it was the right time. What does that mean? Next week? I doubt it. Years into the future, when we maybe have kids? More likely. Oh, and the reluctance to do anything requiring getting off the internet that I mentioned. That's because he's posting in forums and Discord fetish communities talking about it. All these people share weight gain tips and compare progress pictures of their bellies and write pornographic role play stories. I'm truly disgusted. I have obviously been sitting right next to him countless times while he gets off in his own little world. He has even discussed with random strangers how to keep me in the dark. Apparently, the most common suggestion was play dumb and make it into a running joke. So there's my explanation for why he constantly dismissed anything I said. Unbelievable. I'm just going to end it right there. It just goes on feeling, she goes on and feeling kind of betrayed, that she was misled.
Yeah, she says she wants to call off
She's-
the engagement. So
Right. She's
yeah.
not sure if she's 100% sure I want to call off the engagement, 80% sure I just want to bite the bullet and end the relationship. I absolutely love this man. Why did he have to do this?
There's so much there, right? Like, on top of all of the issues of him going behind her back, with your partner, you need to discuss your kinks and your fetishes. Point blank. You can't just hide that and then actively ask people on the internet how to keep hiding it when you're trying to get married.
Yeah, I think
Because there is always the question of like when to reveal those things in a new relationship, you know, if
Sure.
somebody, but definitely it's before you're engaged for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like doubling down after the engagement to try to keep it a secret.
I mean, I think that we missed the pre-piece because it sounds like this is very much an online kind of fetish. Like he's engaging in these role play stories and stuff like that where it is. But then she says in a previous thing that their sex life has actually deteriorated. So this is a fetish in that he's getting off on it while he's talking about it with these online forums. But
which like is fine as long as you communicate that with your partner, right? Like,
but yeah, if it's impacting your own sex life, then it's obviously it's kind of a very interesting situation there. I mean, part of me sort of, for me, it almost sounds like this is like an like the kind of reverse of an anorexic forum, where people are, you know, are grouping together to enable this kind of feeding, weight gain behavior. And you know, I know that it sounds to me like there's some kind of eating disorder-ish. I mean, if it's related to sex, it's a hard one, but it's obviously not related to sex between them, which is way more complicated to unpick, I feel. But there definitely sounds like this kind of eating disorder element to it, where they're all enabling each other to continue to do this and hiding, you know, tips on hiding it. And it's kind of, you know, if this was, like I said, an anorexia forum, this would be something that we crack down on quite seriously in terms of internet social responsibility. You know, the same with like suicide enabling forums, which again, you know, there seems to be people where people can congregate to discuss these things. It's just uncomfortable all over. There's so much to unpick, and I don't know whether to say racing to therapy is like the first kind of port of call, but I kind of almost feel like that's the only, if she wants to save her relationship, she's got to have that kind of discussion with him, because this is something that is over, you know, if it continues and he continues to gain weight, it's going to increase his morbidity, right? She's going to sign up to somebody that if they do get married, that is going to have a very much shorter life expectancy, which again, if that's not consensual, I mean, I'm not saying that's guaranteed, because someone could get run over by a bus tomorrow, but you know, there's a lot of things that when you go into that, you're going to make a conscious choice. You understand that certain things affect, you know, your lifestyles and things like that.
And she's also involved in a fetish that she never agreed to, right? Like her life is being affected by his choices, and he never discussed it with her.
She says it's been going on since college, but they're only 23 and 24, so it seems fairly recent. So it's not like they're like 28 and it's been like 6 years in or something. But I think she questions if he really wants to change, you know, like I think that's the problem. And it's like, if it's just her driving it, then obviously that's not going to work out. So
I'd be interested to find out how she found out. It doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't matter in the end
well, it
game.
says she just confronted him about the weight, and then he like so she originally posted just saying he's gained like a lot of weight. How do I talk to him about this? He's deflected in the past. And so people gave her advice on how to confront him. And so she confronted him, and then this came out. So I think she just thought he would be depressed or, you know, stressed out with work or something. And he's like, actually, and then it ended up being this.
This is a deliberate
room for a conversation about the fetish, maybe. So she, you know, it sounds like it's just up to them to have the conversation.
I mean, Kelsey makes an interesting point there about, can we could probably set down the specifics of the fetish, focus on the lying as grounds for ending the relationship. I think, hiding something is because that, I mean, if it is if it's less fetish and more eating disorder, then I kind of understand people's motivations to hide those kinds of things, because it basically comes down to control. Like, you feel out of control, and one of the things that you then control in those situations is food intake, whether that's, you know, plus or minus. And there's definitely then more going on there. And I think if they truly love, you know, there's a possibility they could work through it if it's something that he wanted, and this is the piece to get help with. But it doesn't sound like he actually does want that. So,
and even if it is still a fetish, conversation still needs to be had there.
Okay, so what advice would you each give her? She's wanting to know if she should break it off, she should call off the wedding. What would each of you say?
I think if she needs to understand if it's something that he wants to change in order to save their relationship, because if it's not, and it's just going to get worse, then she obviously will have to make her decisions around that. And it sounds like she knows what she wants to do if that's the case. So go with your gut.
Yeah, I think they've got to talk about it, and then if she's still not comfortable with it, she should absolutely feel free to leave.
Right. Let's go to our next one. This is my personal favorite. Like, I don't know why. It's sad, but it's also just like a crazy story. So everybody hold on tight. So last post, so it's another one where there was 2 posts. So the first post I'll just summarize. She found out her husband had hired strippers for her bachelor party. One of the strippers was a close friend of hers, and she did not know. So both the friend and the husband hid the fact that the friend stripped at the husband's bachelor party. They hid this for 4 years. So she's saying, I confronted them both separately. They both gave very different stories. Rebecca, who's the stripper friend, says that my husband got drunk, groped her, and she refused. He pushed her and started yelling at her. Apparently, her husband and his friends believe I shouldn't be friends with her because she led them on. My husband says they didn't sleep together, but Rebecca tried to initiate and performed oral on him while he was blackout drunk. I'm staying with my parents because I don't know who to believe or if I should even believe either of them. All I've done is argue with my husband since this confession. I'm left more confused than ever. And honestly, I just want to say to both of them, but if my husband's story is true, then he's totally innocent. But what if Rebecca is telling the truth? What if neither of them are telling the truth? I'm sick of them both. I haven't stopped crying since arriving at my mother's. And to be honest, I don't think I can. Why would he hide this for 4 years? Why would she? If they both believe they're fully innocent victims here. My husband is a mean drunk, but he's always so soft-spoken, and I don't know if he can do those things Rebecca claimed. But I don't know if how he acts around his friends. But I've known him longer than Rebecca too. But I'm all for believing women. I feel like by agreeing with my husband, I'm denying Rebecca's story/side.
I initially am willing to believe the dancer friend because, yeah, just like Female Gamer said, strippers aren't hookers, and she could completely lose her job for trying something like that. 100%.
And it's a very simple story. Like, he got drunk, groped her, and she refused him. Like, that seems like something that could happen to me. The story of the friend got him drunk and then performed oral sex on him while he was passed out. That seems more far-fetched to me, just like looking at the 2 stories. What would be the more likely scenario?
I mean, the piece is, though, if she was genuinely a friend, why would she not have said something at the time?
Because it's terrifying. Can you imagine? My gosh, I would if I were a dancer and I ended up getting hired for my friend's husband's bachelor party. First of all, I'd be terrified to say anything. And then second, if my friend's fiance assaulted me, I would be terrified to say it.
I wonder, if she had to do it, did she know it was him before she got there?
Right.
Did she have gotten out of it? Like, how does her job work? Could she have said, oh, no, I know this guy, I don't want to do it? Like,
well, I'm sure in the previous...
I want to know the dynamic.
I think in the previous post it said that this was arranged mutually between the 2 of them. This was something that they...
Okay, so she agreed behind her friend's back.
That's in the previous post. I'm pretty sure that that's what it said. It's like this was something that he
pretty
arranged
shitty
with
by
her,
everyone,
and she agreed to do it.
So he had gone out of his way to hire her.
Yeah,
but did she know he did that, or was he being a creeper?
I don't know. But then I imagine she would have said no because she would have recognized the name and things like that. I would have thought, or even just turned up and going, "This is a conflict of interest. I can't do it." But she obviously followed through with it. So, yeah.
I have a friend who in college, her boyfriend was like a serial cheater and she would never believe any of us. And I literally was driving in my car. I saw him next to me with another woman. I was like, oh my God, there he is, with this other woman he's cheating with. And it was right. They were engaged, and it was a few weeks before their wedding. And my friends and I were like debating, like, should we tell her? She's never gonna believe us, you know. And I eventually broke down and told her, and she didn't believe me, and I got disinvited from the wedding. So I've definitely been in that position where it's like,
I mean, did she find out subsequently that you were telling the
they're
truth?
still married. They're
Oh.
still married. So I
my
don't know.
gosh.
I think that he probably still cheats, and she just like looks the other way. They have like 4 children now. So
That's a lifestyle that
But-
quite a few people, I think, do, like seemingly sign up. So
and she does talk to me again, for the record. We just don't discuss that incident. So we still talk on like Facebook or whatever. But
I feel like looking at these set of facts, it's likely that what happened was he did what he did because he is a mean drunk, and she admits that. And then
that's a red flag too.
Right. And then he came up with this story of, well, the stripper came on to me. What was I supposed to do? Like,
yeah,
that makes sense in my mind more than this woman who's at work assaulted a drunk man.
after
at
he
his bachelor
specifically
party.
went out of his way to book her.
Right. Like,
And-
knowing who she
yeah.
is, knowing she's a friend, like that. There's too much weirdness there. And of course, like, men do get assaulted, women are abusers also. But like, that doesn't make any sense.
Like, where were his friends? Like, how did he just get like? I'm not like blaming like anyone, but like it just seems like a weird story. Like, so they dumped him in a room, passed out, and she just like went in there. And then like, if he's passed out drunk, how does he know that he got a blowjob? Like, so I don't know. It just seems like a weird. Like, there's I don't know. I'm not a man. I don't have a penis. I don't know if I could say I know my penis.
I mean,
what happened, but
it's a shame that none of his friends seem to be decent and to give her actually the actual account, because it says here, you know, my husband and his friends believe I shouldn't be friends with her because she led them on. I mean, that is there not a decent
red
person?
flaggy.
Exactly. Is there not a decent person? I mean, you're stripping under anyone's kind of guise that could be leading somebody on, right? But it's not.
Oh my God,
stripping
right.
does
It's
not
not.
mean like
It's a job.
Exactly, it's a job. Lap dancing doesn't mean you're entitled to grope them. It doesn't mean they're leading you on or they want anything more than just that thing that they've been paid to deliver. And
is that why he asked for the friend? Because he thought he could get away with more for his bachelor party?
I don't know. Well, yeah, maybe he thought, you know, she wouldn't tell, right? Or I don't know. Or I think he just liked the friend and he thought this is a great way to. And then he got drunk and obviously stepped
Wait, it's
over
you're
a line.
naked.
You want to see it like it, exactly. And then of course they all got drunk and decided
He
that
could
she'd
just
led
go
them
to-
on.
He could just go to her bar when she's working at normal. Don't attack her. Ugh.
His husband's got a lot of red flags.
The
Okay,
husband's-
he's angry drunk.
He's putting
Like,
out a
you
lot
shouldn't
of-
be friends with. She led us on.
Yeah.
How does a stripper lead you on? Like, she's doing a job. You hired her. So
Yeah. No.
what's your advice for her? She's in her mom's house, not talking to anyone. What would you tell her to do?
I think she needs to talk to her friend and get a proper in-depth account. And I think she needs her husband get the same, because I'd imagine whichever one that there'll be flags and there'll be inconsistencies. And I think that she needs to also appeal probably to some of his friends and say, look, you need to do the right thing here, because. And I think she's got everything on her side at the moment with you know, sexual assault and the movements, and say, you guys need to tell me it's, you know, do the decent thing, the right thing.
Yeah, I think she's got to talk to the friend.
Or friends or whatever, because somebody in there knows what happened and they're not saying. And I think that they should, and I think she should be aggressive around
Sadly,
it.
I think the fiance's friends will defend him no matter what. There's like a code of silence around guys,
It's
and I don't think
possible.
they'll break.
It's possible, but then I think under the current thing, one of them at least has got to be decent. Surely, I
you'd
don't know how
hope.
big a group it might be, but you'd hope that at least one of them might have some conscience.
Yeah. I don't envy her. That's. Yeah, now is a great time to re-examine the engagement.
Well,
Yep.
they're married.
Married now.
Yeah,
Already
4 years
done.
married. This is
Also,
4
like,
years
if he
later.
was a mean drunk and you got
Yeah.
married and you didn't ever try to get him help,
I love,
With
but
the
I love
mean
that it says
drunken
my husband is a mean drunk, but he's always so soft spoken. That's a complete oxymoron to
doesn't
me.
make
It's like, yeah,
sense.
like, that means he's not always soft spoken then if he's a mean
Right.
Right.
He's a mean drunk, except for, you know, when he's not.
I think the husband sounds red flaggy. A lot of things going on.
Yeah.
So I think that like maybe you need to examine the relationship as a whole. Like this incident might be like a microcosm
Oh,
for a
yeah.
bigger issue.
Mm.
So that's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Okay. So here's we're on to Anne's favorite. This
Oh
is
my
her
God.
favorite.
This is my favorite.
Beyonce expects me to perform like Belle Delphine in the bedroom. Red flag. Last night, as I was scrolling through Reddit, I learned of a girl named Belle Delphine. After researching who she was, I have realized my fiance wants me to be like her when we're being intimate. He has bought me cosplay outfits, which I happily wear because I think it's fun. However, he's asked me to make faces which feel really silly, wear elf ears, wear a pink wig, and he's mentioned that he wouldn't mind if I got braces because he thinks it's hot. I never put all this together until I found out who Belle Delphine was. I'm feeling uncomfortable. She's quite young and her whole aesthetic is childish. The fake braces to look young and her bedroom which looks like it was designed by an 8-year-old. Should I be worried that my fiance is into underage girls? How does one screen for pedophilic behavior? I don't want to be a slave to his fantasies about this girl, but am I reading into it too much?
So yeah,
I believe
so
you Googled Belle Delphine, Anne.
I totally did. So this young woman, I want to say it said she's like 20 years old. Yeah, she's a South African internet personality, and just like she said, the young lady wears a pink wig and ears, and her whole vibe is that like she's young and cute and you know whatever.
Does she wear braces?
so
Because
it-
that's an interesting one.
She doesn't,
Oh.
which is a weird, scary kind of moment in that story, right? So my initial thought is like, first of all, if he wanted you to cosplay, that's, you know, if you're down for some role play, that's totally fine. Like, do your thing, girl. But like, he was having her cosplay as a specific person and
Not
not
telling her.
and that's super uncomfortable for me. Oh, she used to wear braces. Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Nigma. I only looked at the first picture. Yeah, the cosplay is that she looks like Belle Delphine, so pink wig, elf ears, and apparently braces. Yeah, I don't know how you screen for pedo behavior, but I agree with Kelsey Ann. I think she might be doing it right now. Even though the girl is not underage, I think that's
She's supposed to look underage. Like, is that the vibe? Like the
maybe
20-year-old who's playing like a
But
child.
is
Like
this an age play thing? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
the
right.
chat know.
Like he wants.
But even still, like the basic conversation would have been instead of continually giving her pieces of the cosplay and saying like, "Oh, you should try this. Oh, and then we should add this." He should have been upfront with her
No.
about what he wanted her to play.
Yeah, I mean
I
she's.
think that's where the line is for me.
I mean, I think she's drawing her own conclusions here, though. So this girl is clearly overage. She's immature. She's obviously she sounds like she's a porn star. She's a whole lot of other things. She's obviously playing to the age player market, which I know still has some controversy around it, but she is an adult, and she just has like a little side. I mean, you know, it says the bedroom's designed by an 8-year-old girl. I mean, you walk into my bedroom, I've got rainbow unicorns around the place and things. I am a 41-year-old woman here. So I think her leaping to that kind of like conclusion is an interesting one in terms of how she obviously views certain things. But I absolutely, you know, I don't think he's a paedophile. He obviously likes maybe an element of age play, and that's something that he needs. He may not even be aware that that's what it is that he's into, and they both maybe need to do some research about that and find out what they're comfortable with. But yeah, she's obviously at the moment not very comfortable. A, because he didn't tell her fully what he was doing. It's been like, well, do this, and can you then try this, and can you do? And it's like he's trying to almost turn her into somebody else, and that seems a bit like, well, if you're not happy with who I am, then we've got an issue, right? So that's like the first thing is, firstly, you know, if it's like every single time now, then this is some kind of fetish, right? Rather than than him actually wanting to be in a relationship with her, he wants to be in a relationship with Belle Delphine, and that's a very different issue that they need to have a conversation about. But if it's the general aesthetic and the idea of this kind of age play thing, then I think there's a bigger thing where they need to maybe go and actually have and research and educate themselves about what that actually means and whether they're comfortable exploring that, given they're two consenting adults.
And they're 31 and 32 years old. Like, these are
exactly old enough,
adults. Like, they should have been having some sort of negotiation if they wanted to get into role play. Like, they should have had a conversation here. And he sort of stole that from her by being like, just wear this, it'll be fun. Well, okay, now just add that, it'll be fun. And like, she was role playing without realizing it.
She should tell him that she'll do it when he looks like Jason Momoa. If they want to do something like, right? It's like, fair's fair, right? If I'm going to be your fantasy figure, then maybe you've got to be mine.
Such a jerk. I'd be like, I want you to dress as an old man. I'd be like,
right.
Like, I go the opposite
bifocals
direction.
on,
Yeah, like really thick glasses and like a cane and like depends. That's what I want.
Oh dear.
God.
I mean, Kelsey says again, you know, I think they've got to look. It really is like, is she comfortable with something that he obviously finds a sexy part of their bedroom activity, and if she can't get her head around it and he's not willing to not do it, you know, she's got choices, right? So,
and I mean, I think like I would look at him overall. Like, I wouldn't say this one fetish would make him a pedophile. Like, I would look overall. Does he have some other fetishes that are like, you know, of concern? You know, maybe look at his internet history. I don't know. Like, you know, I think that like, if it's one thing, he might have just discovered this, or is it like an overall pattern of something that points to something nefarious? You know, not just Belle Delphine. She seems cool. Like,
right.
But yeah, so
it's interesting.
So you gave some good advice. Yeah. And I think the overall theme with these has been like, with your fetishes, you have to be upfront with your partner, guys. You have to don't just try and sneak it in there. Just be upfront, you know, because it seems like these women have wanted to please their husbands and do things to make it work, but it doesn't work if they're not honest. So
yeah. And well, I think obviously in the first instance, he was aware after a period of time that it was a fetish. I think in this, they may not even be aware that that's what it is, in that, you know, or at least that's what it's leaning towards. But certainly if it's something that he wants to do that regularly, then obviously there's an element of some kind of kick that he's getting out of that. And do they not want to explore that in more detail?
Right.
Communicate, yes.
Yeah, that's what we've had. 2 of these were about men with fetishes who didn't want to communicate it to their partners.
Mainly because they don't know how, or maybe they're not. Yeah, one is definitely deliberate. This one I'm not sure is deliberate.
Right.
It's
just talk.
Yeah.
Okay. Staying in the realm of fetishes, we'll have one more. So, so my boyfriend has a panty fetish, and I play into it a lot. But mostly, he has asked me if I would be interested. Most recently, he has asked me if I would be interested in finding another female who would let us use her panties, or even buy some offline. I kind of think this is weird, and I'm worried about cleanliness as far as panties coming from someone else. Any advice would be great, especially from someone who has the same fetish. So use panties, guys.
I just want to know why he can't just use hers. Why do you got to spend money and find other ones? Or is that part of the fetish? Is it being a stranger?
I think that's a bit of it, isn't it? And we all smell different and stuff, don't we? It's like it's almost like having a third person in the room without having a third person in the room. Maybe
that's fair. And yeah, I think folks in chat are saying, yeah, at least they're communicating. So I think that's whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, and I think it's
I'm
kind of
not
that.
into it, but it might be your thing.
I mean, I don't know whether. I mean, when they say panty fetishes, does he like to sniff them? Does he like to wear them? Does he like? I don't quite
Right.
know.
I think he wants her to wear the other women's underwear, though, the used underwear.
Oh no, that's not healthy. No.
That's what I'm reading it as. Am I the only
I
one
didn't
reading
read
it
it
that
like
way?
that. I read it as in like sniff or he
Ooh.
wants to wear them.
I definitely
Well,
thought
if
it
he
was the
wants to
orange
wear
is
them,
the
I
new-
don't care. But, like,
Oh.
Well, no,
I
because it's
totally thought it was the orange is the new black thing of like you just have it to have it and whatever, and they smell them. If somebody's wearing
I
these,
thought
this is a
so.
whole medical emergency.
yeah, I feel like,
Well, even
he's
smelling.
asking her to wear them.
I don't know. I think even smelling them would be. I don't know how long various things
Yeah.
last on in terms of things in your excretions and stuff. If the person's not fully clean and things like, there could be. I'm not saying definitely, but I would want to know that just to be safe. I'm not saying things can be passed on, but some things can be, like herpes. You know, it's
Yeah.
obviously if you're going to sniff them, you're putting that near your mouth and your nose, and you get cold sores. So I'd want to know that person was clean. But I think this is where don't buy random. Hygiene, I think, is just an accepted risk. Is it okay?
Yeah, Sam just killed me. Said get COVID from used online panties.
Oh God.
No.
Wear your mask when you sniff them, guys.
I don't even know where to start from. I mean, a lot of places these days don't allow it, and I'm guessing because that, you know, it was a big industry, and I guess for hygiene reasons. I mean, it's a biological fluid. Stuff can be transmitted in any kind of biological fluid. I don't know how long it lasts, but it seems like maybe they need to build a relationship through a fetish site with somebody. Make sure they're clean and they've seen tests and stuff. Don't just do it randomly. Do your homework, build a relationship with somebody, and then maybe you might go down that road. But I think they're going to have to go to somewhere quite specific to kind of do that.
I'm sure that there's research to be done here these are not the first people who've come up with this, obviously. So like there's got to be a safe way to do it.
Oh, there you go. And apparently in Japan you can buy used panties in a vending machine. That does not surprise me. It's Anne's face. But I'm guessing in Japan they'll have tested that.
They would have screened them. They're really good about that.
They will have absolutely have ensured the hygiene of those panties. They're really, they would have been super thorough about anybody who submits the panties to the panty vending machine. So, but yeah, I definitely think. I mean, I think there was a lot of things as well where you get conned by people and stuff, and what you're getting is actually just not used panties at all.
Well, and it's like we were talking about Belle Delphine, right? Wasn't she the one with the bathwater?
Oh, was it?
She was selling used bathwater. She was one of them, I think.
Oh, okay.
Like, how can you tell if it's used bathwater? I'm just gonna send you some out of my tub.
Yeah, or like the people who sell like country air in the little jars and stuff. You're like, what the hell? Like, freshly bottled in the countryside for the people who live in urban groups. You're like,
my goodness.
What so it's one of those things that's just easy to fake. Apparently my computer is saying power is off in 5 minutes to save energy. Press any button to prevent the power off. I've just pressed a button and the message is not going away. So
Dom, help!
I may need some support again in a minute. But I would just say do your homework. Build a relationship. Find like a fetish site.
Or go to Japan. Go to Japan when COVID clears up. The vending machine panties.
Okay, it's just gone away. The message has just gone for some reason.
Well, I guess we'll find out in 5 minutes.
If we black out in 5 minutes, I'm sorry.
So we're gonna go with keeping Nessa's computer in mind. We're gonna move to the last segment of the show, where we get to know Anne a little bit better. So I'm gonna get my timer ready,
and I've got
my
Nessa super technical box of questions.
Yes, our fancy stuff here.
Anyone in chat, if you've got any, would you rather this or that, or the kind of like any of those kinds of questions. Safe for work, please.
Thank you.
God. Patrick has decided to join the conversation.
Right. Want me to tell you when to go, Nessa?
Yeah, give me a second. I'm just going to mix these up. But yeah, any questions for safe for work questions for Anne? Pop them in the in chat, and we'll deal with them at the end. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, ready, set, go.
Snow White or Cinderella?
Snow White.
Spicy or mild?
Spicy.
Ferrari or Lamborghini?
Lambo.
Missionary or doggy?
Doggy.
Sweet or salty?
Sweet.
Movie, horror or comedy?
Horror.
Bacon or sausage?
Bacon.
Pizza or pasta?
Pasta.
Wax or shave?
Shave.
Ooh, thunderstorm or snowstorm?
Snowstorm.
Sweet or savoury?
Savory.
Trousers or skirt?
Trousers.
Popcorn or nachos?
Popcorn.
Eat in or dine out?
Eat in.
Winter or summer?
Winter.
PJs or nude?
PJ. Ah! It depends.
Spa or
Right
gym?
time.
Oh, spa or gym, last one.
Oh, what was it?
Spa or gym?
Oh, spa.
Hey. Girl, that's my
The
own
girl's not fun to do some cardio.
Peen or what?
I don't even know.
For
Barbecue
what, though?
Western North Carolina
What?
barbecue kills.
So yeah, what is North Carolina barbecue? What does that
Yeah, we have
entail?
3 different types. You've got vinegar, you've got tomato, and then you've got some mess in the middle. And then South Carolina is mustard. Best alcohol, Jameson.
Oh, like a whiskey, huh? So,
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
That was a joke. Oh, good. Didn't mean to say for work.
Oh,
Or give up watching
Pro.
college sports or pro sports. Do you watch a
Pro.
lot of
I can't
sports?
give up. Oh, I watch all the sport. Well, when there's sports, I watch them all.
But-
At the moment, there's not much sport. Is that?
No.
They're just starting football again here, so everyone's been well excited.
Oh, thank God. It's about time.
Left or
Sounds like
right?
left.
There's only one answer to that, isn't there?
I write with my right hand, but I vote left, so I don't know.
It's now saying
Road trip. I hate planes.
now saying power off is in. Do I need to press a button on the computer? It's now power off in 1 minute.
Oh, no. We better hurry up and
Quickly do
close
the
up shop
right.
here.
We'll do some social medias quickly.
And where can we find you?
DeNovo Review 92 on Twitch, Twitter, all the things.
Okay, I'm green-eyed_Meg on Twitter, or you can
Got
find
it
me
again,
here,
where's
Meg
that
K.
start
Loop.
Oh, you think it's a? Oh, it may just be a monitor thing. It may just be the monitor switching off. I'm on Twitter. Nessie with an IE_AC. Obviously, find us here in another couple of weeks, and yeah, check out all of the other TBN offerings. Sippy's on in half an hour with last drink, or first drink even, having a moment there. So all of the indie stuff that came out and they discussed earlier in the week on Up, Down, Left, Right. Sippy is back here. Oh, earlier actually. What do you mean earlier? You're going to start straight away, are you, Sippy? Check it out.
Fancy.
Stay around, and Sippy's going to go live any minute. Then it seems like. So
Cool.
like now, yeah. It's a shame we can't just
Good timing by us.
shame we can't just raid over to Sippy, but Sippy's there and says he's literally ready to go. So yeah, stay on the channel, and Sippy's going to start any minute. But yeah, I hope you had a good time. We will upload the VOD for this, so tell your friends, and yeah, we will see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, guys.
Bye everyone.